Hello, and welcome back to our podcast series, Collections Conversations, sponsored by our friends at C&R Software. We've talked about AI quite a bit over the course of this series. In fact, I feel like all I do every day is talk about AI. And yet, we haven't talked about the role that AI and humans will play together. And that's important, especially in collections where humans tend to get caught in the middle of a bunch of really difficult operational trade-offs. Collections interactions are incredibly high stakes, but they don't generate new revenue. Customers want the ability to talk to a human at any time, but they mostly rely on self-service channels for their interactions. Collection agents genuinely want to help customers, but they're measured by efficiency metrics that require them to make as many calls per day as possible. AI can help resolve some of these contradictions. It can make self-service channels more intelligent and more personalized. It can empower human collections agents to slow down and to do fewer calls, but to do them much better. It can review every call that a collection agent makes, not a sampling of calls, but every single call, and coach those agents on how they can improve. It can make collections more of a strategic priority for lenders, rather than just an operational obligation to be minimized. That's what today's episode is all about, how humans and AI can work together in collections. And my guest, Pedro Maya, head of collections and credit risk at Tangerine, was the perfect person to talk to for this topic. So, without further ado, here is episode 6 of Collections Conversations. Okay, Pedro, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Alex, it's my pleasure. Looking forward to have a great conversation with you today.
Likewise, this is going to be awesome. Our theme for this episode is humans in the Fintech loop, and specifically trying to think about the impact that AI is having in collections, and in particular, the impact that AI has on the people working in collections and working across the credit lifecycle. Obviously, when you talk about Fintech and you talk about AI, a lot of the conversation tends to be like, oh, can we fully automate this? Can we completely remove humans from the loop? I don't think that's very realistic. And B, I don't think it's necessarily desirable. I think people, particularly in moments of kind of key financial stress, want a human being in the loop and want the ability to talk to a human. But we also obviously know that AI is going to have a huge disruptive impact on how all of these internal processes and systems work. So, Pedro, from your seat, especially given your role as head of collections and credit risk at Tangerine, and this kind of like 1 foot in a digital world, 1 foot in kind of a traditional banking world, I'm very curious if you kind of think about your journey with AI so far. Give me like one big misconception that you encounter internally regarding kind of what AI can and can't do.
Absolutely, Alex. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is a people business. Collections, credit risk is a people business. So we need to keep that human connection. I think the biggest misconception is that, yes, AI will automate and fix everything. We know that that will not be possible. AI will not replace good design, good policy, or good judgment. It only amplifies whatever we already have. If we have a process that is misaligned with customer expectations, has gaps, guess what? AI will only amplify that in a probably big time. The big opportunity is to create more intuitive, frictionless, more personalized moments for customers and allowing people to focus on the most complex transactions. I think we need to simplify the work for our agents and then have the conversation with customers about what works best for them. And if it's a good customer outcome, we believe that it also will be a great business outcome.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, a theme that's come up a lot on this series over the episodes we've recorded so far is this idea that collections is like a very important high stakes moment within the sort of overall customer journey. And so even though I think historically a lot of lenders have focused more on collections as an operational sort of business, it's actually in a lot of ways the most sort of human part of the process and a place where you really do want to focus on that experience and those outcomes for end customers. So building on that, I guess another thing I wanted to ask you about is you obviously have been playing around a lot with AI and agentic AI. And, it's funny, inside of banks and when you talk to bankers, I think they're really used to thinking in terms of systems as like fixed tools that either work or they break. And, one of the biggest challenges I see with people as it relates to AI is that AI is a little bit different when we talk about it in a modern context, right? Large language models, agentic AI systems, they're not quite the same sort of like fixed deterministic tools that we're used to in banking. Can you sort of articulate the difference in how you talk about that when you talk to folks internally?
And I think we keep it simple. It's like a similar approach as how we train agents or people. They will not act independently. People, and in this case, agentic AI will require training and feedback. The AI will analyze patterns and context to support decision makers. So again, it's to complement the human decision. And with the right oversight, they can probably help us achieve better options, better outcomes for customers, and better insights over time. So it's again, that feedback loop. You cannot say play and it will work. No, you need to probably play, stop, calibrate, and go back. It will be a lot of test and learn. You will hear that probably along our conversation. Test and learn will be key along this journey because we're early on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and speaking of being early on, I guess when we talk about the human that's in the loop, and you do a lot of this today, right? Like when you're training teams, what's the like mindset shift that you're trying to unlock in how they relate to AI in their workflow? Because obviously we hear a ton about AI is going to replace people and eliminate jobs. That's a huge narrative. I think it's a bit of an overblown narrative, but like it's a huge thing that I think everyone is kind of nervous about. And just like generally speaking, and you know this, I mean, people get very attached to whatever their workflow is, right? It doesn't even have to be perfect, right? I sometimes joke that one of the reasons that like old software is really sticky inside of institutions is because it doesn't work very well. And because the people who have mastered it have sort of a skill and a fondness for a system that they know really well, even if it's not like an ideal system. Yeah. So getting people to kind of walk away from the software and the workflows, they know it and have mastered it today, and think about changing that workflow. I mean, there's a famous business book like Who Moved My Cheese? Like people don't like that naturally. And so I'm curious what your experience has been sort of integrating AI into these sort of human workflows and the training and sort of process you've gone through to do that.
I think it's a critical point, and the thing that we are working on, and I think something we need to do today, tomorrow, and for a very long time, is you need to be asking the right questions. You cannot think that AI will give you a definitive answer. You need to question it and see, is this the right outcome for the customer today? And question it. At the end of the day, AI will help you facilitate the options that are available. Then you still need to make a decision. And most important, you need to be accountable for that decision. And I think that's the key part. If I'm accountable, I cannot blame AI told me this. I got information. I got a series of options that AI simplified for me, but I still need to make that decision, again, in the benefit of the customer and within the guardrails that we will set up for a credit risk decision, for a collections loss mitigation tool. The guardrails will also be very important, but it's questioning. And I think the goal is not to blindly follow AI. But I think as people get comfortable and see that, by using AI, I'm getting better outcomes, I think people will trust it more and again, ask better questions. It becomes like, I will say how many people envision AI is a person next to you all the time that can help you be that sound voice that can help you make better decisions for customers.
Yeah, that's a great way of thinking about it. And I like that piece of advice about kind of question and push back because, and let me try this theory out on you and tell me what you think about this. But I think we have a hard time as humans with AI because on the one hand, whenever you're interacting with any type of software system, I think the way that humans are sort of trained to think about software is the software itself is the guardrail, right? And so like the software, like if I ask it a question and it gives me an answer, that answer is right. If I try to do something and it doesn't let me do it, then I'm not able to do it. And so we tend to treat software as sort of the perimeter that we have to operate within as human beings. And as you're saying, like AI is kind of the opposite in some senses, right? Like AI is not always going to give you the right answer right away. It's not always going to land on the best thing to do, the first shot right out of the box. It might, and we know that AI can be a little obsequious and a little bit like, hey, that's the smartest thing ever. Like, great job. Like it's not, even though we interact with it as software, it doesn't provide that same function. And in some senses, I think the human who's interacting with it, like it's like the human is the guardrail for the software. So we've sort of like flipped that mental model. And it's funny though, because, and I'm curious how you talk about this with teams and like how you try to like break this mindset down. I've heard, and I've used this analogy myself, people describe like large language models as sort of like interns, right? To your point about like someone sitting next to you doing what you do. But it's not even a perfect analogy because an intern like is not very capable, doesn't know very much, and like, is a human, and there's only so much that you can do in terms of giving feedback. Like eventually even the most patient intern is going to get frustrated if you like keep just asking questions and keep pushing on them. Whereas AI, like it is like a human in the sense that it's fallible and you have to check it and you have to push back, but it also is really smart, really capable, endlessly patient, endlessly willing to take feedback and to be interrogated. So like, have you landed on a good analogy for helping people think about this thing sitting next to them? Because it's not really software and it's not really like a human intern or assistant. Like what's the right mental model or framework to think about?
It's a great question. And I will probably be preaching out something that we do not have all the answers for it. I think we're learning along the way. Again, as I said, is early on. But at the end of the day, is something that goes back to AI should be helping us summarize a series of options, summarize series of data, giving us options. But I think the key part that we are trying to tell our teams is you still need to provide the context. You need to be challenging. Is this the right thing for the customer? And I think when you answer that question always from a customer perspective, let's say in collections, is the right thing for a customer to pay their debt over 5 years? I think that's a question that they need to ask themselves. And answers it could be yes, could be no. And then you need to validate that with the customer. Sometimes, again, like things that you see, even when you go back to the analogy of our core systems, the agents typically say, I may not have understood this very well. Let me ask for help. I think that's the other part. I think one misconception is with AI, you don't need the help of anybody anymore. No, AI will help you, but there need to be other people that can help you. Is this making sense? What do you think? I think that feedback between colleagues will continue to be very important. AI will not replace that invaluable feedback from a peer, from your leader. And going back to, you will be accountable for this. As you say, the system gives me an output and that's the holy truth. No, you need to be questioning it. And at the end of the day, you use that as part of your decision making. At the end of the day, you need to be held accountable for the customer outcome or for the business result. In collections or credit risk, lending more money, restricting a customer, giving a goodwill gesture. The person will be accountable within the boundaries and guardrails that we have set for them, because that has not changed. If there are authority limits, that will not change. So that keeps things into a safe space. You have the margin for error because errors will happen.
I love that you said the word accountable, because that's the thing that was jumping out to me as you were talking, is this idea that again, it's funny how these things sort of like flip us around and sort of we end up in the opposite place than we started. I think historically, the way that we've integrated human beings into software systems, whether it's collections or other sort of stages within the credit risk customer lifecycle, the human is almost an input into a deterministic system where it's like the human being, I think in some senses, is like less accountable, because it's like, oh, I'm just doing this one part or resolving this ambiguity or answering this question or whatever. But like I am a cog within a machine, and the machine is the thing that's accountable, and I'm just sort of like operating within that system. It's funny though, as you're talking, I wonder if the sort of infusion of AI into all of these workflows will actually increase the amount of accountability that we demand from human beings involved in this stuff. And the example you gave is a great one, right? Is this the right thing for the customer? That's a hard thing to vet out, right? Like that's not something, and I'd be curious for your take on like how you sort of coach around this and like what sort of requirements you set internally around this. But like, that's one where you have to kind of trust humans' intuition and judgment a little bit. Like, is this the right thing for the customer? Well, partially that's a policy question. Is this in policy or is this not? Partially that's a risk question. Like, how risky do we think this is for the institution, for the customer? But part of it is just like a very human intuition thing about like, does this feel right for the customer? Is this based on what the customer has told me or what I've learned about the customer match up with what they're looking to do and what's right for them? And, it's funny, but like that accountability concept, like making humans more accountable to, is this the right thing for the customer? And less just like, hey, we need you, human mind to go solve this ambiguous little step in the process. Like it's less that because we can throw AI at that. And it's more, does this feel like the right outcome for the customer? Is that how you think about it?
Yes, and I think it's a combination of two things. One is the objectives and targets that you put in goals for an agent and for AI. For an agent, something that you said, collections, a great decision, but something that we have in agents' scorecards and in their incentives is NPS, the Net Promoter Score. So you're putting an incentive to think about the customer. How would the customer react to the decision I'm making? Is that in the best interest of the customer? But at the same time, you have the other guardrail is you need to collect on that loan. And I think that is something that we have seen that provides the right balance at the agent perspective. And I think on AI, it's the same thing. You need to measure outcomes. If you're only measuring efficiency, you're only measuring that the model is working well, you will get a partial part of what AI should be giving you as an outcome. The outcome should be connected, should be giving you higher NPS, should be giving you higher dollars collected. And when you measure that, you will see, okay, is AI helping me achieve that outcome? Because the model could be saying, ACE is working well in terms of efficiency, is saving cost, but I'm collecting more money, I'm touring more customers. Is my NPS up or down? I think that's the part where when as an organization, you need to go back and reflect. Yes, okay, let's keep going. No, let's go back and provide feedback. How would you provide feedback to an agent when the outcome is not the one that you want? The same thing will be with the AI models. You need to go back and provide that feedback. We achieved more dollars collected, but we saw that customers' satisfaction is going down. Maybe it's the time to calibrate.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think something I wanted to ask you about is the sort of connection between the metrics that you use to measure and the ultimate like value that this technology is creating. And I feel like in collections for so long, we had this mentality that, we should only be measuring like operational metrics, right? Like how much time is a human spending on the phone with a customer? What is the right party contact rate? What is the roll rate from one bucket to another? Like we tended to have these very sort of operational efficiency metrics that were sort of king in collections for a long time. And it feels like because AI has the potential to add so much just efficiency in everywhere, right? Like it can just, no matter what part of the process you plug it in, it can probably help, as you were saying, summarize, help people sort of narrow in on the right decisions to make, help from a self-service perspective if a customer is just stuck somewhere. Like it can just add a ton of efficiency in everywhere. And so efficiency overall probably isn't as useful of a metric. And I could imagine a scenario, and tell me if I'm wrong, but like I could imagine a scenario where you might actually see, because of AI, an increase in the amount of time that human collection agents spend on the phone with a customer, right? Because other steps in the process have been made more efficient. Maybe that, collection agent doesn't have to do 25 calls a day, but can do fewer calls and do them better. So like, how have you seen kind of a recalibration of metrics internally as some of this AI stuff has started to get some traction?
Absolutely. And I think that people realize that early on. That yes, when you start to automate, to digitize, and now to use AI to simplify or to move away simple transactions from a human, from an agent, what is left? The complex transactions, the difficult conversations, the affordability assessment. And I think we have moved away of the, I remember when I was a collector at the time, one of the key metrics was units per hour. I remember UPH. In the competition between my peers, who will be making more cases per hour. I think that most of the good collection shops have moved away from those, and it's not efficiency metrics, it's effectiveness metrics. Is have I cured the customer? Did I offer the right loss mitigation tool? I think cure rates will still be important. And if in order to cure a big balance, you need to take 10 minutes or 15 minutes, is a better use of the time than working 10 accounts, 2 minutes to collect something that could have been collected digitally, or that maybe was not the right outcome for that customer because the customer made a payment, but guess what? That customer will fall into delinquency the next month. I think we have evolved from that. And I think I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason. Going back, I think, to your first question, if AI would have been with us 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we will not having these conversations. It would be a matter of how we can work more cases, how we can just create scale to capture more volume. I think that would have been taking us in the wrong direction. I think right now, with how we have digitized first regular automation and the experiences of COVID, financial crisis, I think have provided a more human touch to collections, and also realize that by helping customers when they need it the most, you get better outcomes. You get probably more with honey than with vinegar, and you get customer loyalty. I'm a big believer collections is a moment of truth. And if you do it right, you have a customer for life. And if you do it wrong, then we have the typical problems, escalations, go to Reddit, complain. I think we're moving in the right direction, but there's still work ahead of us. And I think AI will test it even more. Again, bad designs will just augment the problems, but good designs will help us remove friction from the customer experience.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, because I couldn't agree more. And I think in particular, your point about COVID, and there was kind of this moment in time where I think a lot of folks in the field kind of realized the importance, because everyone called their financial provider during COVID. The surge in calls was just massive. And I think one of the things that struck a lot of folks I talked to in collections very deeply in that moment was people were calling before they had a problem. And so it was a really interesting window into what a more proactive approach to collections looks like, where it's you're there for the customer and helping the customer before they have an issue. And then I think the other thing that the pandemic was sort of a good test case for in this way is everyone was probably calling with slightly different circumstances or slightly different concerns. And so it was harder, I would imagine, to be oh, we can apply simple automation to this because the rules are very simple and the inputs are very simple. Everyone had a different story and a different narrative they were coming to those calls with. And so I feel AI has the ability to sort of parse differences in terms of inputs a lot more flexibly than the systems that we have in place today. I want to ask you about supervision of AI, because obviously we've been talking about the importance of pushing back, questioning, not just accepting kind of what the AI comes back with. Can you give me a little more detail on sort of how it's best to do that? Because, I'll be honest, I'm not a data scientist. I don't understand how these models work. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not sure that data scientists totally understand how these models work and would be able to explain what they're doing, right? These are probabilistic models that operate on these massive amounts of data and take in a ton of context and then come up with these very intelligent guesses about what you want to hear. But the actual mechanics of explaining how they work is very, very difficult, bordering on potentially impossible. So given that, what are best practices for how you supervise these AI models and make sure that you're pushing back appropriately, that you're getting explanations or you're getting comfortable with the recommendations that they're making? This episode is brought to you by CNR Software. More than just debt collection, C&R sets the global standard for AI-native humanized credit management. They simplify the complex with technology, built for modern financial services, delivering end-to-end credit risk lifecycle support powered by automated workflows, AI-native intelligence, and real-time data-driven decisioning. Learn more at crsoftware.com.
It's a great question, and I think it's a series of circumstances and events that will need to happen. I think when you're designing, I think a critical part is test that a lot. Test the model with non-production accounts, with employees. I think that testing will be very important, because we know that AI can be hallucinating. Hey, a great customer outcome is to forgive the debt. You get that outcome in testing, that's
NPS
not
scores shoot
idea.
through the roof. Yeah.
Exactly. This customer wants to buy a car. Give him a line to buy it. So, of course, the testing will be very important to calibrate that. So, step number one. Then, even after you test it in regression, I think a test and learn approach will be important. What is the use case? Within collection, you have a whole cycle of collections. Early stage, first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Where you want to test it? And then within the same population, have a test and learn. Your champion strategy is your current process. Could be a detailed process without AI, could be an agent process, but test it. Start testing slow, fail fast, and course correct. So then I think that will be very helpful. But then the other part, let's say that you have regression testing, you have test and learn. Then I think going back to the agent analogy, even if you train an agent very well, you will not put them to take calls and never check back again. I think you need to go back, and is agentic AI. So you need to go back and provide feedback, see the outcomes that it's having, and be able to close the loop in terms of things that can be improved over time. That will be very important. I think the thing that will force everybody is that governance will need to happen every day with a frequency to see what are the outcomes, and again, what are the outcomes that you're getting. I think something that in collections, we live and die by results, and we have a series of KPIs that we will need to continue to monitor. And as we were going back to, you were saying, right, Party Connect is the intensity level is the right one. People are checking that every hour at some point. I think we'll need to find a way of how often and what are the key KPIs for the different agentic AI solutions, for the AI models, so we can continue to see is giving us the outcomes, the customer and business outcomes that we want. And if not, course correct, it's okay. We will probably continue to make a few mistakes along the way, but the important thing is that we have, I think, the North Star very clear. We want to provide better options to customers, and that the decision making will continue to be with humans in many of the critical paths in collections. I think with that clarity, we'll try to execute our plan and make some mistakes along the way, but you fall down and you stand up fast and keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in terms of specific uses or use cases, where are some of the early places you've seen some wins or some traction? I mean, obviously, as you say, this is all still very early. We're still experimenting with a lot of this, but can you give us some specific examples of things that have worked well or that you've been sort of surprised by?
I think working on, but definitely quality assurance. I think the old model was, hey, you listen to all calls, but then you were listening to a sample of the calls. 10 calls per agent per month. But if an agent will be probably managing 500 calls per month. I think right now let's forget that. And you were trying to identify mistakes, compliance mistakes, customer experience. They did not follow the call model. I think one of the key parts with AI is you can analyze the entire base. You listen to all of the calls. You have that already, but AI can do a QA of every single call. So how powerful could it be for an agent that say you have 500 calls heard in a month? And it's not how many mistakes you make, because the number of mistakes will be higher, but this is the patterns that we see. You listen to the customer in most of your interactions. You are a very good try to get a payment in full as an initial step, but you also have an opportunity in how you do not wrap up at the end of the call. I think that being an agent at the time was, well, you listen to 10 calls and you tell me that I was not good, but I have so many good calls. I think that's something that is changing is, oh, you listen to all of my calls, and now I have confidence that I'm very strong in this, and I have clarity that I'm not good at this other part. I think you remove the judgmental part of it, and now people focus more on the outcome. I will continue to do good work in listening to customers, but I need to do a better job about getting the facts on the table. I think that that's one that is important. And I think the next one that we are working on is that part of agentic AI from either a chat perspective or a call perspective. That one is early on. I think that what we are framing is how we can start small, simple transactions, within collections. I think the early mistake was solve the complex ones. How you can help a customer refinance, ask all of the right questions. We're not there, Jack. But
that's hard, yeah.
But if customers do not like being called for small balances. Customers do not like to be called when they know that they are going to pay today or next day. Those transactions that create friction are the first ones that we're addressing. Because if we remove the friction from the customer experience saying, I didn't need to talk to anyone, the customer will probably be accepting more an interaction with AI, and then leave those more difficult conversations when the customer is saying, I think I need to talk to someone to get more help. And then you refer them to an expert. And I think that's something that we're seeking in real life. When we have a medical problem, we go to a doctor. It's a specialist in an area. When you have a financial problem, you go to your banker for advice on investment. We want people to see a collections agent as that expert to help them when things are not going well in their financial situation and that they need help. I think that's the key. In going back to the customer, remove friction when they do not want to talk to us. That's where we're focusing on AI.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense. The doctor analogy, I think, is a really good one too, because like the worst thing, and this is what doctors always tell patients too, is like, just come in, come talk to us. Like the worst thing you can do is feel a sense of shame or fear or uncertainty that even though you're not feeling good, you don't call us, you don't come in. Like, come in, please talk to us. And I think that collections has had that problem historically, right? Where I think collections is seen as being sort of punitive and judgmental and only something you do when you have a problem and you can't avoid it. It's not something that like solicits, like we almost need like preventative care as a mental model in collections, right? Like, come to us early. And I think, sorting out those high value interactions, whether they happen late stage or early stage, right? I mean, like, I think what I'm hearing you say is we want people to come talk to us when that's going to be a high value moment that builds trust and helps sort of improve collection outcomes. That could be before they have a problem. That could be later in it. And in between all of the little interactions like reminders and little nudges and things like that, if those things can happen without us bothering them and without having a human being involved, all the better, right? And AI can be valuable there. I do want to just emphasize the thing that you mentioned about the QA function for calls, because that to me is like, I don't think we should ever do sampling ever again with AI. Now, you know what I mean? Like, we used to do sampling because in a perfect world, we want to listen to every call, but we don't have the time. And so instead, let's cherry pick 10% of these calls. And honestly, it was more of a compliance thing, right? It was more of a cover your own ass sort of thing where it's like, let's listen to X amount so that we can make sure that like nothing red flags, no like, huge problems are happening. If they are, we can catch them, or at least not catch them, but at least show that we were trying to catch them, right? It was very much of a check the box kind of thing. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I hear you describing is if AI can listen to every one of the calls, then it's much fairer for the collection agent because like you are getting 100% of that person's work and you can judge it fairly and comprehensively. So it sounds less like compliance and more like almost coaching for the agents, where it's like everyone should have a performance coach, much like an athlete does, where it's like, we watched all the film Here's what you're doing well. Here's what you can improve on. Here's like a very actionable conversation we can have with you. So is that kind of the vision for that particular use case?
I think absolutely, and something that we want to do when we're talking about performance, right? The
Sure.
agent has an incentive of achieving a dollar collected target or a cure rate target, and when they achieve that, hey, everything's working well, no problem. But when it's not working, then imagine how powerful it is to say, hey, we listen to all of your calls, and now we know why you're not
Yeah.
collecting the number of dollars or during the number of customers that you have in your monthly target. And the reason is because in X number of calls, you have these many broken promises. And we know that those broken promises are coming when you're rushing the calls, when you're just taking whatever customer tells you the first time and you want to move along. And that is happening, we're making this number up, 100 times a month. And it's happening 20% of the time. And then you can pick up which of the cases you want to listen. Oh, I'm seeing that. Yes, it's a pattern that I have. Okay. Then you do not judge, is there a problem or not? I think that then you remove that obstacle and then you focus on the right thing, on the coaching. How I solve for this, how I should be probing more that maybe that promise is not as solid as I thought. How do I need to recap at the end of the call to ensure that that promise will keep? Then you focus on fixing the problem than judging the problem. I think that's a big step into making significant improvements in performance, because I do believe that most of our people want to do the right things. And also all of them, they want to achieve their goals and incentives. So I think it's just giving them, empowering with the tools that also going back to before you depend on your coach or your team lead to give you that feedback.
Sure.
Right now you can get that all that along. You know what are your scores for the month, for the week, and you can decide which calls you want to listen. You want to see what the score that you got on that call. So I think that's very powerful. Again, you're empowering people to be accountable of their own results. And I think when that clicks, then magic happens.
Yeah, that accountability. But I love that example where it's like, you could imagine a scenario where a collection agent is with the goal of getting more dollars collected, rushing, right? Like you're rushing, like you're going too fast. And like collection agents do this all the time because it's like, I got to get these calls done. I got to do these things. Yes. And it's like the feedback could be as simple as take a little bit more time, probe a little bit more. And like, that's a very subtle piece of feedback that you might have to listen to dozens of calls before you could identify like, oh, this is what you're doing compared to your peers that's probably tripping you up a bit. But if you just like you're rushing, just if you slow down a bit, that could make a huge difference. So that's really compelling. I also want to swing back to the simple transactions that you're just sort of enabling better, whether it's like a text message or a quick outbound call or whatever it is. Can you help me understand? Because obviously we've had automated digital communication for a while in collections, right? We can send text messages, we can do outbound voice, we can send emails, we can do these things. So we've had lots of like automated self-service options in collections for a while. How does AI and agentic AI make those kinds of outbound digital communications better? Like, what is it about the capability of an LLM and its flexibility and its reasoning capability that makes those even sort of simple transactions, which we made progress on with collections, with email and text and everything? How does AI make those better?
I will say this when I will speak in total honesty. That's what we want to do, not yet, but it talks about hyper personalization. Today we're saying, hey, I'm going to say, hey, for our low risk customers, which is a segment, I want to send an SMS, no? And then you say to this entire population, I will send an SMS, one-way, two-way SMS. Everybody's doing that. But I think with hyper-personalization, you get creating risk segmentation at the account level. Maybe a couple of customers, both are low risk, but maybe one responds better to an SMS than an email. Maybe I personalize that. Then the other one, when you want to try to get it further, we have templates that are very customer friendly, saying, hey, Alex, oops, you missed a payment, versus, hello, Alex, your account is overdue. To which one do you engage better? I think with those outcomes, I think we can say, at the end of the day, what we want, that Alex will engage in this example and that you will pay without needing to talk to someone. I think that all that information will help define what is the right treatment strategy for a customer at the customer level versus at the segment level. I think that is one that I think we need to develop, because you need to get a lot of those outcomes and a lot of testing to be able to get to that level of personalization. I think the one that probably closer to be implemented is that live chat. No, I think that chat that can help you define better outcomes. Today, those two-way SMS is very transactional. Have you paid? Yes, no. Are you to pay tomorrow? Yes, no. Give me an amount, give me a date. I think that when you add the elements like saying, hey, these are the payment options available, and be able to complement that saying, hey, if you can do this, this will be the benefits. I think going back to how we can tell the customer that is the best option for them. How we can tell a customer when the customer says, oh, I cannot pay, refer them to, we may have other options available to you. You can talk to an agent. We can give you a link to see what a local support do you have in your community for customers who lost their job. I think that part is something that we are planning to do better. And I think the logic that we're using is two things. Is a lot of information is available at the agent in terms of customer support, but it's very difficult to try to tackle that into a call or into a digital interaction. AI will be able to help us get that quickly. But the other one is we have great people. My organization and every bank has a top performer, the one who is great with customers and great with collection outcomes. Let's model that behavior to be our standard. Imagine you just improving productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness by just modeling your best person available. And I think going back to is involve your team. It's not the data scientist. It's not the guy in credit risk building the solution. You need to have people from the front line, which are closer to the customer, to be part of the design of the different tools that we're going to play with AI. What are the things that customers expect? What are the things that the customer will react better? I think that combination will make it powerful, but that takes time. I think that one we're going to do it probably slower in order to try to get it right, because then you're talking about sensitive things. When do you offer a customer assistance that maybe they need to call to a support line because maybe the customer sounds desperate? Today is very difficult. I don't know when to do that.
Sure.
AI will need to be trained very well saying, I'm sensing this. Maybe it's time for you to talk to an agent, or maybe I can give you these additional tools to connect with someone that can help you in your circumstance because you just lost your job, you lost a family member. I think those parts are the ones that as a North Star we would like to get, but that's the part where there's more hesitation yet from, I think, my bank and I think most of my peers, because it's something that you need to do right from the get-go. If not, instead of moving forward, we can be sent back by regulators.
It's a very high stakes, right? But I think, you're right to identify it. I mean, it's interesting that there's this chasm, I think, that exists right now between automation and humans, right? So it's like I'm in this chat that's asynchronous with a chatbot, and I'm like having this chat. And at some point in that chat, I might do something, and I've done this, right? Like I'm having a chat with sort of a unintelligent bot and trying to get an answer. And like there comes a point where I get frustrated myself and I'm like, no, with 4 exclamation points or whatever. And like, you're not listening, whatever. And it's interesting to think about the idea that rather than like being trapped in that experience and then having to like pull the ripcord, end that experience, go over to an agent. And then, by the way, when I'm talking to the human agent, I'm carrying all my anger and frustration from that experience over, but the human doesn't know any of that, right? To them, I'm coming in fresh and they're like, hi, how are you? And it's like, okay, that's not the right tone to take with me because I just had a really frustrating experience with this thing. I love the concept of LLMs being able to bridge these different interaction methods where it's like, oh, Alex is getting pretty frustrated here. We're clearly not hearing what he's saying or giving him the outcome that he's looking for. Or maybe he's just stressed in his own life and something's going on. it would be good to offer him this path or this path over here. And not only can we offer them that path, but we can translate all the context for the interaction we've had with them over so that when that human picks it up, they're not walking into it cold. They have all the context to go, hey, I see that we weren't quite able to answer your question over here. Sorry about that. I know that can be frustrating. What can I do to help? Like, then I'm going to feel a lot better and feel like I'm being heard. And that's like a small example, but that feels very powerful to me.
It's super powerful because we talk about now omni-channel. It doesn't matter where the customer started the interaction, that journey follows that customer. May start in a chat and end up with an agent, the other way around. I start talking to an agent, but at some point I may want to connect to the chat. I think that needs to be synchronized. And that's how, even at some point when I was giving you the answer about the AI QA, there's a very powerful use case that is the copilot. I think we're talking about that. The copilot that can tell you, hey, this is the call that is coming through from a chat, from the IVR, but this is the context behind. There's already an interaction happening, the customer is frustrated. But the other one, imagine that AI will be able to read the notes from the last tier, saying, hey, this customer, every time that connects with an agent, gives excuses or gets irate, and gives you a recommendation of how to approach this. When I started collecting a long time ago, do not ask about when, Alex. It was a system recommendation, but even it was a word. System recommendation was call, do not call, offer a loss mitigation tool or not. I think it was very binary. I think right now you can get a recommendation that talks about tone, about solutions, about how deep or not you want to go with that customer. Then I think that customer will get to what every call center leader was wanting to have. Anybody who answers the phone will be able to help you in the same way. We can give that copilot to help agents that are different by nature, but you get a good summary saying, this is how you may want to approach this call to be more effective, to help the customer and to get the right outcome. And then goes back to the feedback loop. I use that. I trust the AI in that one. I try it. It works. I will trust it more. Hey, it didn't work. I need to go back and provide feedback because somebody in the back end will need to get feedback to this AI tool because it's not giving us the customer outcomes that we want. I think that's the one that we want to invest a lot of time, but it will be a use case that will come shortly after nailing down very well the AI QA. That copilot, I think, will be very, very, very powerful for the call center agents.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's a very satisfying thing to think about that human interactions will get so much better because of AI. Like that's not the way that we've been talking about AI broadly. I think in the market is like AI is going to replace all these things or remove all these things. No, like what if AI just makes us all better at talking to each other? Like that is such a, and doing it at scale. Like that is such a powerful idea. Okay, this has been awesome. Let me ask you one more question before I let you go. We've been talking about kind of what's happening right now, how you're interacting with this. If you look a little further out, like 2-3 years from now, how do you imagine the ideal collaboration between humans and AI looking across the credit lifecycle and in collections specifically?
Yes, it's a great question. And you're saying 2-3 years look like a very long horizon. That typically is around the corner. But I think I do envision that AI will be that silent partner that will help you identify patterns, identify better solutions, and give that and empower the human to make a better decision, to get a better outcome for the customer. And I think we do that right. We will create effortless interactions with customers. We'll be able to get efficiencies that the banks will need and any company will need to continue to invest in products and services to help customers. And I think we'll make humans focus on things that are more meaningful. We have heard so many times people do not like to do things routinary all the time. I want to do something different. I want to add value. I think AI can be that magic, that silver bullet, be able to empower humans to focus on the things that matters most. In the case of collections, helping customers when they need it the most. I think if we can achieve that, then we'll say in 2-3 years, we have achieved probably the first big milestone of AI to be a complement to the humans.
It's fantastic. Well, I can't wait for that future to manifest. Sounds like you guys are doing great work to help push us in that direction. Pedro, thank you so much for taking the time. This was fantastic.
It was a great conversation. It went so fast. Alex, thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. This episode is brought to you by CNR Software. More than just debt collection, CNR sets the global standard for AI-native, humanized credit management. They simplify the complex with end-to-end credit risk lifecycle support, powered by automated workflows, AI-native intelligence, and real-time, data-driven decisioning. Learn more at crsoftware.com.